Hey everybody, Jeff Coffin. This is the fourth video of Connecting the Dots, the app that takes the mystery out of improvisation. We're in my studio here in Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome to it. Today we get into the blues progression. There's a progression that gets you into understanding how these chords work together. The blues is not just about playing a blues scale, okay? The blues is understanding the vertical nature of harmony and how it connects all the way through, using voice leading, using notes of the arpeggiation. If you know the arpeggio notes, this is the skeletal system of the chord. If you think about what your body would look like without a skeleton, it's kind of funny. It'd just kind of be a blobby mess on the ground. There'd be no definition and no structure, right? And it's the same with music. If you don't understand the arpeggiations of a chord, it's not really going to sound very good most of the time. You might happen upon a few right notes. I won't go into as great of detail because if you're in this section, you kind of know what this app is about by this point. But I will outline a few things. In the arpeggios and voice leading exercises section, I go through and exercise A is just playing all the chords in root position. Root, third, fifth, and seventh. And I've added a few extra chords in the blues. I've got a 6 chord. I've got a 2-5-1 at the end of the blues also. Exercise B, we're using one note to voice lead into each successive chord. And you can see the visual architecture of this as we go. Again, like a slow wave. If you listen to this, again, you can change tempo, you can change key. It's pretty relaxed. And then you're just playing whole notes all the way through, just following all the way. Before we get into the play-along exercises, I want to remind you also, if you go back to the beginning and you hit that little gear wheel, you can choose your instrument from 11 different instruments. They're all range-specific at the beginning there. Look for that gearbox and go there. Okay, so we're going back down to the blues arpeggio exercises here. So letter B is voice leading using one note starting on the root. Letter C is voice leading using one note starting on the third. Letter D starts on the fifth. Letter E starts on the flat 7. Just like we've been doing in the other exercises. Pretty simple. So then we get into these rhythm exercises. Blues arpeggios in root position. This again is giving you just the root position arpeggiations of each chord. The same rhythm in every bar. This one is starting with 2 quarter notes and 2 eighth notes. Bop, bip, beat-up, bop, bop, beat-up, so on and so forth, right? So each of these, exercise A, exercise A2, A3, A4, A5, and A6 are all different rhythmically. So rather than putting them all on one sheet, I decided to separate them because the blues form is 12 bars long. So you have 6 exercises, 6 different rhythms. And that applies to all these so that when you look on the left-hand side here, you'll see there's a lot of exercises. Okay? Don't be dismayed. That's just the way that it's got to be. So that's the way it is. So then if we go into exercise B, we start on one note. Okay? And you'll hear a call and response. You'll hear me play it first. Here we go, 2 bars. You start to hear the progression in what I'm playing. Boom. And you can play along or sing along or just listen and watch. Second time you play it. All right? So this is working on pattern recognition, which helps you work on your sight reading also, helps you work on your imitation, helps you work on your listening by imitating and emulating what it is that I'm playing. So that's B1. B2, okay? Again, starting on the root, a different rhythm exercise. B3, starting on the root, a different rhythm exercises. 4, 5, and then 6. And so all 6 of these rhythmic exercises are then repeated starting in C1 on the third. Okay, so C1, C2, C3, C4, C5, and then C6. All starting on the third. And that continues through. Letter D starts on the fifth. Okay, 1 through 6. Letter E starts on the flat 7, E1 through 6. In exercise F1, we go to 2 chords. And the last note of each bar voice leads into the first note of the next bar, either moving up or down to the next closest note without it being a common tone. Okay? And so F1 through F6, we're starting on the root. Okay? And then G1 through G6 is the same rhythmic exercises, starting on the third. Right? And then letter H1 through H6 starts on the fifth. And then letter I1 through I6 starts on the seventh. Let's listen to I6 just to listen to it. Okay, so you can see this one's got a bit of rhythm to it. 2 bars, count off. I'll play the first time through. Right, kind of a cool little rhythm. And then you play it. Right, so you can hear it's a really smooth transition between each of the chords because I'm voice leading. I'm either moving up or down to the next closest note without it being a common tone. Starting at exercise J1, we get into 3 notes, starting on the root. Different exercises, different rhythmic exercises, all the way through J1 through J6. Again, those same rhythms are used in K1 through K6, starting on the third. Okay? So there's repetition of rhythm also, so it's a reinforcement of those patterns. L1 through L6 starts on the fifth. M1 through M6 starts on the flat 7. Let's just choose M4 just for the heck of it. There we go. And remember, you can change the tempo or the key, whatever you want. Right, the same rhythm all the way through. So again, it's reinforcing it all the way. So 3 notes per bar, voice leading from the last note of one chord into the first note of the next chord. Okay, so here we are at exercise N1. Now we have 4 notes per bar. We're using all 4 notes of the arpeggio. So let's listen to this. Again, I'll play it all the way through, and then you would play the second time. Starting to sound like a blues, right? Last note, voice leads into the first note. Smooth transitions. Then you play, right? And so you go through, again, different rhythms, all starting on the root, N1 through N6. Okay, so now letter O1 has these same rhythms starting on the third, O1 through O6. P1 through P6, same rhythm exercises starting on the fifth. And then finally, Q1 through Q6 are those same rhythmic exercises starting on the flat 7. Let's look at the very last exercise, Q6. And let's hear that. And you'll be able to hear the blues progression and what's being played because you're playing the changes now. And this rhythm is probably familiar by now because it exists in all the other exercises. Again, the last note of every bar, voice leading into the first note of every next bar. It's a really important thing. Again, it keeps it smooth using the arpeggios, again, the skeletal system allows you to really feel like you're playing the changes. So after the rhythm exercises, you go to the blues tunes, A and B. So these are derived from the exercises that we've already worked on. So you have A, and then you have B. Let's listen to letter B. Again, a 2-bar count off. Maybe you could even write your own tune. All arpeggios. Now you would play it through. Right? Again, you can play it with me. You can sing it if you want. But there's not a note in any one of those bars that's not a note from the arpeggio of the corresponding chord, which I think is pretty cool. And then, again, we have solos that I play. Solo 1 and solo 2. Let's listen to solo 2. Let's see what I did on this. Here we go. Using only notes of the arpeggio. Rhythmically displacing. And you hear the blues in what I'm playing. You hear the progression. Oh, little trills. So you can hear that I'm using a lot of different techniques of articulation, trills, and using the full range of the instrument, so on and so forth. So hey everybody, that's it. That's the last part of connecting the dots, taking the mystery out of improvisation. That's the blues section. I encourage you to change the tempos on these, to change the keys, to work on them with somebody else also. Do a call and response with your private teacher or with your friends. This is meant to be really fun and educational. And if you take this idea of using the arpeggiations, understanding the vertical nature of harmony, as you're moving along horizontally, you can figure out any chord. You will not get lost in a tune. You'll be able to play through and really play the changes. And then once you understand that, then you can start to kind of venture off and start to play some of the other notes, play a half step below one of the notes of the arpeggiation. And then it's kind of off to the races, the sky's the limit. Your creativity allows you to go from there. Again, what this app does is it allows you to put little pieces by little pieces together. Okay, you're trying to drive down the middle of the road. No impediments, no cars, no corners, just right down the middle of the road. All right? And eventually, you know, you get to take a few turns here and there. And you'll see other cars on the road, and there'll be little impediments along the way. But with this knowledge, with this foundation, there's nothing you can't figure out. So happy improvising. Thanks for checking it out. Connecting the dots, taking the mystery out of improvisation. Thanks for joining me in my studio today in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Jeff Coffin. Peace.